Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the Sanderson Farms 2021 projections, pivots, sleepers, and winner. So let's get into this. All right, so quickly, just some fast facts about the course. This is the Country Club of Jackson, and it is located in Jackson, Mississippi. Par 72, plays between 72 and 7,400 yards, depending on where they move the tees. They do have large greens, but pretty average ones also. I've listed out all the key indicators there that we will be plugging into the model to see what it spits out. And your past winners here is Sebastian Munoz, last year, Cameron Champ, Ryan Armour, and your runner-ups are Sungjae M, Corey Connors, and Chesson Hadley. The guys that we will be focusing on that I glean to be the ones that have done well here in the past are really good at approach and really good at putting. And these are some very fast, speedy Bermuda greens. So let's take a look at the model. So what I've done here is I've got 3 different models, and I do validate these models. What I do after I create them and put these key categories in that we're looking at is then I take the past fields and a couple years back and I pop them in and I just see where they come out ranked. And as long as like the top 10 are pretty much within my top 10, then I know that I have the right areas that we're looking at. But also, of course, using Fantasy National, it will show you the areas that you need to focus from the past fields that have done well. But I always do that just to kind of self-validate. The first model was looking purely only at the Country Club of Jackson with my key areas that I put in here, and that is off the tee, fairways gained, distance, par 5 scoring is a must, par 4s are also a must. A lot of the proximities from 150 to 175, guys going for the Eagles on par 5, so 200 out. We're looking at guys that can get a lot of birdies. This is a 20 or under winner that we're looking for. And a couple shorter par 3s for a PGA average, a couple 188 par 3s. So that was key approach. And then on another one, I did add putting. But, you know, right there, you see I'm looking at just putting from 15 to 20 was a key area. And some names that I highlighted there that just kind of kept showing up over and over. Some no shocker. Yeah, we'll talk a little more about those guys. I also looked at comp courses, so then took that same key kind of categories that we're looking at and also took and turned on filters looking at par 72s, Bermuda, playing between 72, 7,400. They gave me about 6 or 7 courses. The one that stands out for a key comp course is the Golf Club of Houston, where they play the Houston Open or the Shell. And the one area you'll see I highlighted there was I was kind of shocked about Doc Redman, where he ranked 5th from making putts from 15 to 20 feet. And the reason why is Doc is typically a great, driver of the ball, great approach, not the best putter. Also, you could see he only had 3 rounds in these courses, so it might have just been a unique where a couple of those rounds he was just draining some long putts. Lastly, the one model I looked at was it was recent forms, the last 36 rounds, but turned on just the filters of fast Bermuda greens, just and then added putting, just to see where the top putters came out, and Sam Burns, who popped up in the other, and Brian Harmon, who popped up in the previous models too. That was unique to me. And then of course you have your good putters that typically just show up between your McCarthy's and Postons. So from that, let's go into and find out. I am recording this Tuesday around 5:30 Eastern, and I want to give you the projections right now for ownership, and then who we're going to try to pivot to. So no shocker, Scotty Scheffler back from his positive COVID test. It's just been great recent form. I don't really need to go into too much about his recent form if you watch golf at all. But he is 22% owned. But some areas that may be a little, cautious where I can do some pivoting. I'm not saying I'm not going to play Scheffler at all, but Bermuda is his worst putting surface. And the last 4 out of 6 events he's played in, he's actually lost strokes putting. So can you even fathom if he would have been gaining strokes putting, what he'd have been doing? But, you know, again, great recent form with, you know, 3 top 5s and then 3 top 25s. He does have a history here at Sanderson Farms. He had a 16th last year. And then I believe this was his first actual PGA event he ever played in, along with Robbie Shelton. And he had a 45th when he came off the Corn Ferry. Next guy who's coming up over 22% owned right now, or projected to be owned, is Cameron Davis, which is not a shocker. He's been producing significant, both these guys been producing crazy fantasy points. But Bermuda is a negative surface for Cameron. And if you look at his last 8 events, he's had 4 miscuts, but he's also had the 36th, the 29th, the 15th, and a 12th. And if you look at his past history at Sanderson Farms, he had a 28th last year, but did miss a cut in 2018. So again, there's some holes there that you could find to fade. And again, the ownership is crazy. The price, I think the price is a good price. And again, I'm not saying don't play these guys. What I am saying is you might not want to put them all in the same lineup if it's impossible. So Sammy Burns coming in at over 22% owned, 9,800. Bermuda is by far his favorite putting surface. And, you know, great recent form, had a 28th at Corrales, could have been, you know, maybe actually win the tournament if he didn't blow up on Saturday and shoot a 78. But then he came back on Sunday and shot 600, and we're going to talk a little more about Burns later on. But I like Sam Burns this week. Even with the chalk, it's the chalk that I will be eating. Out of these guys, for sure, I'll be playing Sam Burns. And in a good, you know, good past form at the Sanderson Farm with a 45th, a 3rd, and a 43rd. Mr. Sanjay M, the guy who struggled coming out of the restart, but has got his game back together, hitting that nice little soft cut fade off the tee is back. So he's been in, you know, good recent form with a 22nd at the U.S. Open, 11th at the Tour Championship, and a 9th at the Wyndham. He's also had a 2nd place in 2019 here, and he also has a miscut in 2018. But Bermuda is his favorite putting surface, so, you know, I'm going to be playing some Sanjay M. Again, just not trying to group them with these guys. And then lastly, at 22% ownership, Doc Redman. Talked a little bit about him. Great ball striker, great off the tee. Around the green is where he's always struggled. Putter can, you know, go up and down, but mostly down. And Bermuda is a negative surface for him. But, you know, recent form, a 3rd at Safeway, a 3rd at the Wyndham. But if you look at the totality over the past 6 events, he does have 3 miscuts. He's played here once and had a 52nd. So out of the 5 of the chalk that I'll eat, it will be Burns and M, and I'll try to, you know, I'm gonna maybe sprinkle in some Scheffler and Davis, but not a ton. It'd be more in my core would probably be Burns and M. And then my pivots, you know, last week I picked Adam Long to actually win the Corrales. He looked like he was going to do it with a 3-stroke lead going in Sunday, and then just fell apart. And so with that, I guess a lot of people are jumping off this train. I am not. He's had great recent form. You know, Bermuda, when I say is slightly negative, he's just not gaining any point per set of strokes, but barely losing anything. So I don't, you know, I just put it on there just as a note. But yeah, I'm going to be playing some Adam Long for sure. He will be in my core plays. Brian Harman, under 12% owned, coming at 9,400. Bermuda is a positive surface, good putter, good recent form, and had a 14th and a 40th at Sanderson Farms. Seb Straka was on last week, going to be on him again, get a nice price cut. I think he was 9,500 last week. This week he's 7,700. I mean, it shows you what the field was last week. I don't think the field is that much better this week, to be honest. There's definitely, you know, some better players, but it's crazy some of the guys where they were priced last week and where they're priced this week. You know, but funny enough, Corey Connors is still really expensive, and he's a horrific putter. Great ball striker, horrific putter. I don't have him in my pivots, but again, Seb Straka, great recent form. As I mentioned, the #1 comp course I will be also looking at is the Houston Open, where the golf club of Houston, where they play the Shell, or the Houston Open. Houston Open now used to be the Shell. He had a 4th there in 2019. He has had 2 miscuts here at Sanderson Farms, but I think his game has been in good form. And also his putter. He likes Bermuda, and his putter has been popping. So going to have some of him. Then Carlos Ortiz, you know, I think, you know, people know that he, well, if you've been watching or kind of on it, he's had a great past at Sanderson Farms and the Houston Open. That's why he's on here is one of my pivots. Bermuda is slightly negative, but again, nothing to worry about. Decent recent form, a 46th at Safeway, a 25th at the BMW, which was a tough track. But a third and a fourth at this course and a fourth at the Houston. So even though somehow Bermuda is not pop for him, all of those are Bermuda courses. Those last two, of course, and playing in par 72s. I will have some Ortiz, and especially with the cost. Then threw a few more pivots in here. Charlie Hoffman, he's a little higher owned, but he does gain on Bermuda. He's been in good recent form. He's had a 14th, a 13th, a 7th, and a 56th, and then sprinkling 2 missed cuts in there. And then his past form here at Sanderson Farms, he had a 23rd in 2019, and way back in 2014, he also had a 35th. So that's the 2 times he's played. Hudson Swafford, he's less than, just barely 5% owned. And again, I wasn't on Hudson last week. Nothing was telling me to be on Hudson, but I've seen where, he might have a 3-event, ride. I'm not saying he's going to go back-to-back wins here, but the guy didn't miss a fairway. Great approach, and the putter was working. So, unless the guy was just out partying hard, which I don't think that's Hudson Swafford, I'm on him. Now, typically, a lot of people say never play the guy who won, the week before. But at that price and that ownership, I'm willing to take some risk and get him in some lineups. And then lastly, Lucas Glover, less than 5% owned. Lucas, you could just plug him in on showdowns, and the guy just a birdie machine. He's also a bogey machine, so it's birdie or bogeys. But even though Bermuda is slightly negative, but honestly, Lucas is not the best putter, but awesome off the tee, typically an approach, and it's got a great long pedigree. So he had a 17th at the U.S. Open, a 65th at the Safeway. And then he has some miscuts, but he's been, like I said, up and down. But I'm going to play him. He also has a pretty strong pedigree at this course. He had a miscut in 2019, but he had a 14th, a 5th, a 39th, and a 22nd. So 1 miscut out of 5 attempts and some top 20s there. I'm going to plug in some Lucas and hope he starts keeping on that hot streak he's been on. Now I'm going to go to my value plays. You can call these the sleepers. I call them value plays. These are guys below 7K that are less than 5% owned, and these are the guys that for the GPP, the large tournament, which this week is for 100K, which is a little shocking. Better field. It's a full FedEx field, or exemptions to Masters and all that, just like Corrales was last week. But for some reason, Draftkings, moved the actual total prize amount down for the big game, which is 100K. Not sure why. I think that they filled the whole tournament previously, but who knows? Anyways, let's get on with this. So my first play below 7K, Robbie Shelton. He's 3.8% projection ownership, 6,400. Again, Bermuda's slightly negative surface for him, but recent form's been pretty solid. A 3rd at the 3M, a 13th at the Northern Trust, a 59th at the BMW. And then he does have past history here at Sanderson Farms. He had a 28th finish last year. And then again, I mentioned when he came off the Corn Ferry, his first tournament, he ended up with a 70th place at Sanderson Farms. So I'll put a little Robbie in there. Vincent Wally. This guy kind of was popping up last week all over the place on my models for like showdowns. And he's shown up again. So he had a pretty good showing, a 28th at the Corrales. He's 2.5% projection ownership. Again, the price is crazy. But what I noticed is Bermuda, he gains over a half stroke when he plays on Bermuda. And that's key. As I said this week, that's what I'm looking for, is really good putters on Bermuda. And, he's had really good, recent form. And also he's got, pretty solid past history. He played once in this tournament and had a 45th. So look to put some Vincent in. Austin Cook, this is kind of crazy, but he's less than 1% owned. And Bermuda is his favorite putting surface. He hasn't missed a cut in the last 6 events. He had a 17th place finish at the 2020 Houston Open. Again, the comp course I'm looking at. Some of his highlights, a 39th at the Rocket, 52nd at the a 39th at the Rocket and the Workday, and a 52nd at Safeway. He has played here before, and maybe this is partly also why people, dived in. Austin Cook is not someone that just, is a typical people talk about or play, but he had a 25th place in 2017, but then 3 missed cuts also at the Sanderson Farm. So for that price, that ownership, again, I will have some shares of Austin Cook. Bronson Burgoon, less than 3% owned. Bermuda is a positive surface for him. His recent form's been decent. There's some, if you look at his past 7 events, he has 4 miscuts, but he does have 3 decent finishes. But reason why I put him on here was his history with Sanderson Farms and the Houston Open. He had a 6th place last year, a 20th in 2015, and then he had a 13th at the Houston Open last year. So not someone I typically play a whole lot of. There was a time with Bronson Burgoon, it was kind of sneaky play. Then he just game fell apart a bit. But I'm a little risky play, but I'm gonna put some of him in there. And then Mark Hubbard, which he was kind of almost, I want to say, a chalky play, but a lot of people were talking about him playing him because he went in 9 events, so he was your solid, not going to miss a cut kind of guy, almost like a very mini Morikawa. So he won, let me see here. He had 11th place at the Honda back in February, and then didn't have a miscut until the U.S. Open. And then he had a miscut at the Safeway. So the back-to-back miscuts, I think, are why people are off him. His past history here at Sanderson, he had, out of the 3 times he played, he missed cut last year, but then he had a 51st and a 54th. So, again, I'm going to play some Mark Hubbard at that ownership and that price, help you kind of unlock your lineups. And then my winner for this tournament that I am picking is Mr. Sam Burns. So we talked a bit about Sam, and I'm going back to him. I think he's due for his first win on the PGA Tour. I think he's learning, how to win, and I think last week was a good test. He's been close a few times here in recent past. So if you look over his past 8 events, he's had a T30 or better, and his only miscut was at the Northern Trust. At Sanderson Farms, he's at a 45th, a 3rd, and a 43rd, and he gains over a half-stroke putting on Bermuda, so he loves Bermuda green. So I'm going with Sam. It was between actually him and Sanjay M, and I finally just kind of what pushed me over, which is, kind of everything is a totality. I think he's ready. So to show that kind of life to come back on Sunday and shoot 6 under after posting a 78, that takes quite the balls. So lastly, if you are getting some value out of this, I would really greatly appreciate it if you would click the like button, share it with anyone you know that might also get some interest in this, and subscribe. I put out 3 shows of content per week. Typically, I do a recap of the previous tournament, kind of see how I did, and it's very quick. And then I go into the kind of first look at what we're talking about at the course, and any of that kind of information. And then I do this event where I give you the projections, picks, pivots, sleepers, my winner, and then lastly, I send out usually right before the tournament, 4 or 5 hours the day before. Anything that kind of comes up between weather, showdown plays. Anything I find out that, that you should know. And just on a side note on that, Louis Oosthuizen did withdraw, which you'll see when you go to put your lineups in, and which is kind of stinks because he would have been a nice kind of pivot, I think. And also they just, I think 5 guys got added to the field, which I'm not sure anybody else will be drawn. I'll have to check after this. But the only one out of those was Doug Gim, which I'm not going to do a whole lot. The Gim Reaper, the rest were Monday qualifiers, so no one to concern yourself about. So again, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And all the best of luck. And knowing is half the battle. Now we just got to do the rest.